All right, for the love of all things, let's talk about some comic books because I can't do this. I can't. We're gonna talk about DCeased, Unkillables, issue 3. Tom Taylor, Carl Musrat on the art.
I was gonna make a joke about Pete being the crying Jordan meme, but then this book kind of made me the crying Jordan meme. So
yeah, I did not expect to be emotional for the words tree lobsters.
Me neither.
Yes, so this all came clicking together in a way that I didn't expect, based on having time away from it because of the delay and whatnot. Because we ended at a cliffhanger, because we started this issue with Bane, who's now zombified, just running towards everyone, and like, okay, all right, yeah, we're here. Yes, I vaguely. Clicks into place.
And then Solomon Grundy rips off his head.
Creeper is one of my favorite lines I think ever in comic books. Is that's the first time I've ever seen a headbutt not connected to a body. This book, like, I know it's horror themed, but so far, like even in the original DCeased, it didn't get to parts of horror that made me like go, oh my god, as parts of this one did. And then for him to balance it out with this bittersweetness,
like
of what happens.
The original DCeased mini.
Yeah.
I think this has more heart, which is, even though this is about a lot of it is about the villains.
Anti-heroes.
Yeah. It's got more heart in it than the one with the heroes did.
Well, and I think a part of that is because this is more about legacy. So I'm wondering what the next volume, that's called at World's End or World's End.
Well, that's a digital.
World's End is the digital one.
Yeah. Okay. What's the next one called? Or they return.
I can't remember.
Either way, this.
I can't remember what it's called.
2.
But it's just kind of.
It's just DCeased 3 / DCeased 2. This is 1.5.
Either way, my point is this one seemed to be more about legacy because of who these characters were. You have Slade and Rose there. You have Shiva and Cass, right? You have Jason. You have Gordon. So each of these characters that I just mentioned have some kind of tie to legacy, whether it was Gordon losing Barbara, right, coming across her, anti-life zombie self, and whatnot, and then Jason having to deal with Bruce and them that were in the cave and stuff. So once you get to the end, and man, in the grand horror fashion, it looks like all things the wheels are coming off. Some cases, literally here. It's just you start to see this come into view, and I'm wondering if that's what the next book's going to do with, it's John and Damien and Wonder Girl, drawing a blank, Cassie, the other Cassie.
They're returning to Earth in that volume, right?
Right. Which means this is that in between to where I think some of these characters that we met here are also going to grow.
Yeah. Well, so the fighting all gets going, and we have some fun bits here with Creeper saying, "Oh, Grundy can't die on a Monday; it'd ruin the whole poem."
Yep.
So, and of course he ends up dying on a Monday, which just to make things sad. So you've got them kind of holding people off, going on the run in the buses with the bat tank at the front.
I really like the introduction of them all just before they leave the building with okay, here are the kids again, and a little bit about them.
Yes, which told me at least 1 or 2 kids were going to die, because that's why you let us get to know these kids that well, because we're going to see some of them really grabbed.
Not some of these ones though. When the kids start going, it's not the ones that we're introduced to.
That's true. It's more the red shirt kids.
Red shirts.
But
yeah.
I mean, I don't really remember who these kids are later in the book, outside of the one who likes Cheetah. Right? They're all kind of separate.
Well, no, because you got the one that was trained by Cheetah, like you just said. But then you have the Deadshot kid, who bonded with him, with the slingshots and whatnot. Some of them do stick out. So those are the ones I'm wondering how they're going to interact with these, because they have their own legacy to uphold now compared to the ones that are coming back who left the Earth, and what does that mean? So, but man, this went to some places. So as they're going out and Wonder Woman shows up, I've never been more afraid of Wonder Woman.
Well, hold on, you're skipping ahead a bit, Matt.
Well, we got out that they were running through because they have to basically convoy from Bloodhaven to Gotham.
Yeah,
get
but you
to
have
the
the
jungle.
sequence on the bus happens before Wonder Woman.
Yeah, we got Mirror Master
does it?
first. Yeah. We got
shoot.
we got Mirror Master first. And also we should mention where they're going. They're going to the garden. They're going to
Gotham.
the
Gotham jungle.
yeah, which obviously has kind of miraculously appeared. And some of the kids get grabbed, but we also have the little girl, because one of the favorite moments in the last issue was her saying "Good Kitty" to Cheetah. And
Right.
Cheetah, when she sees that the girl's in trouble, lunges and like doesn't let anything happen. And the girl once again says "Good Kitty" to her and pats her on the head. And I don't think I've laughed as much recently than when she turns around to like Gordon and the rest of the bus and says, "Only she gets to call me that."
Right.
That's where the heart comes from, though. It's not just that they're doing the right things. There's this bonding that's going on with the kids, and basically this issue boils down to all of these villains and anti-heroes essentially sacrificing themselves for these kids to survive. Whether it be the kids from the orphanage, or it be their own kids in the case of Rose, and I mean, even Gordon's saying that's Batman's son up there. I can't just not help. I can't not do something.
Yeah, it's why I think that spread introducing the kids is so important, because it does a little bit about which one is trained by who and likes, like that one with Cheetah is has trained to strangle a pompous princess with her own golden lasso.
It's kind of like,
even when Wonder Woman shows up, she goes, go get that princess. And it's not in the way of like where little girls like princesses and whatnot. She's using it as a pejorative.
Yeah, it's kind of like
princess ass, was it?
These kids are all getting their own legacy character, or these villains are all getting their own legacy characters, because obviously the heroes come from things anyway, right? They already have this idea of legacy. The kids have kind of taken their own. But the build to Wonder Woman was quite good, because Rose kind of senses it coming, and she's like, strap in, and Jason's like, it's a bad tag, it's fine, like nothing's wrong with us. Is it? No, trust me, I see what's coming. Strap in. And Wonder Woman, lands with this full page spread of Wonder Woman all bloody and drilling blood and all zombified with the eyes and everything.
Yeah, again, that struck me more. I don't know if it was the art than when Superman turned. Right, like the Superman turning in the last one was tragic because of Flash and whatnot, but this was just like full on Wonder Woman.
Yeah, I think it was going for a different approach. Like I say, that Superman one was this tragedy of this is the greatest hero falling, whereas this is just sheer horror.
Yeah, this is
an unstoppable force coming for your kids.
This is the fear that comes after, and I think what works so well about this moment is what's worked so well about these DCeased books in general, and why I think this Unkillables is actually much better than the original DCeased. Like for me, I think this 3-issue mini is like in the stratosphere in terms of like rankings here, because this moment where Cheetah runs out and it's like, okay, I've been fighting Wonder Woman for so long, and she comes out here, she's like, I'm going to protect these kids because Wonder Woman is now the dangerous one. And this not only works in the context of having her bond with the kid and the build up of this own story, it also wonderfully inverts just DC Comics in general in a way where Wonder Woman and Cheetah have so much history, and the idea that we are legitimately rooting for Cheetah in the fight against Wonder Woman is masterful storytelling.
Now you know how I feel sometimes.
I think we all agree that this is probably better than the first, DCeased book in general.
Yeah, and I like the first.
I think that's we all like that a lot.
Yeah.
I think that's an important step. That this book doesn't function anywhere near as well without that setup and that story of seeing the tragic fall.
And it helps that it's more focused, that it's not as trying to
do you know what it is?
Show the whole world falling as that first one did.
Do you know what it is? But beyond the specifics of what he's done with the characters in this book, I think the difference is that the original DCeased, well, it's got all these fun moments and it's playing on DC history and Dinah's a Green Lantern now and all these things. It's it has to kind of do all the setting up, not just in the way a normal story, but in the way that it's kind of 6 issues of a. And even though it's really smart, because a lot of writers wouldn't necessarily do a lot or think of a lot of these things, most of it is really just, okay, how does this affect this character over here and this character over here? And this mini kind of started that way, because, okay, how does Deathstroke get affected by this and so on? But this story is much more about the actual story. It's much more about the arc of the characters who are going through this and having a lesson learned. They're growing and changing. Whereas the main book, okay, maybe there's a little changing, but for the most part, it's just the world is dying and it's watching the heroes die one by one.
Do you know what it feels like?
And they're trying to survive.
The original was the pilot for this universe.
Yeah,
like that was the setup, and and then everything else from here on can actually be okay. We can do these focused stories in this world now. We don't have to we don't have to spread, show the entire far-reaching consequences of every little action like we did in the first.
And it's Taylor playing in his own sandbox.
Well, just to stick to that TV comparison for a second, it's very much like season 1 of a lot of shows is kind of like good at the concept or whatever, but season 2 often is when it kind of takes off and becomes like what the show really is. And I feel like as much as technically this isn't season 2 because there's a DCeased 2, this is kind of more of an in-between, but for all intents and purposes, this kind of feels like we're getting to the gold as to why Taylor wanted to explore this and wanted to do this world. This is kind of a proof of concept almost, more so than the original book, because this is proving that there's stories to tell in this world beyond just, the zombies attacked and this is how they survive or don't survive.
And I'm not a zombie guy. Like, that's my least favorite kind of horror, because I just don't like. I get it, reanimated corpses are scary and whatnot, but I just feel like they've been troped to death. But here I feel like the zombies and at least in Unkillables, they were more of a seasoning than the entire meal. And like, the main story was this emotional.
Well, yeah, here's the thing, Matt, is that most zombie stories, they exist to be zombie stories. There's tell me one other, with the exception of maybe like an episode of some TV show that's been around for a long time. How many zombie stories do you already know the characters for years, or in this case decades? Like,
no.
The closest I think of is, I think Marvel did a zombie series, right?
But it wasn't.
But that was like a just, look, everyone's dying to zombies. It didn't have any weight.
Yeah, it was Marvel Zombies, and it was just a. Well, I mean, then they came back and tied Evil Dead and whatnot into it, so it made it a little bit different, right? This is purely DC. This is the anti-life equation, running amok with a virus.
What I'm talking about here, it doesn't matter what the cause is. It's just about the fact that all these characters and their connections all have weight and matter before everything even starts. So
and it's still uniquely DC, but I still feel like if this was a zombie movie and these were the type of characters we were introduced to, if they were archetypes, I still think a lot of it works.
Oh, I know, I agree. A lot of it probably would, but I think there's a sort of zombie fatigue in general across the board, right? Because there's just been so many zombie things over the last couple of decades. But I think what's unique about this is that it's very rare to have such a long-form storytelling that's already existed. There's nothing to do with DCeased itself. It's just all these DC characters are established. All these connections between them are established. So once you start seeing, like, because when I watch a zombie movie and it's like new characters are introduced, I'll do even a good one, like Traité Busan, really, really good stuff. But it's not the same as immediately going, wait, how's so-and-so going to react when this other character dies? How is Gordon going to react when he finds Barbara's body?
It's something that's very unique to comics in general. And even just as taking aside from the zombie thing here at all, just kind of put that to one side for a second. It's something that, because we know so many of these characters, there are a lot of books that we can go into with that doesn't have to do as much heavy lifting as other properties would, because we already have connections to characters. We come in with these biases that they can just play on that are already established, and then they can invert tropes from the start because they don't have to set up the tropes first. And I think that's what this has done here, where it doesn't have to worry about setting up any tropes. It doesn't have to worry about setting up any relationships, because it knows most of the people reading this already know these characters. It's fine. So we've got kind of free reign to just mess with it.
Yeah. So, I mean, we get, and this continues, so we have the cheetah moment, which already kind of hit hard because it has all this weight behind it of, like, flipping the roles because now we're rooting for cheetah. But then you've got Creeper and Grundy kind of, like, saying, no, we're going to go help her. We're going to go stand off because these kids need to be saved, and they're like, we're tree lobsters, and it's kind of their moment, right?
The handshake with the tree lobsters. I was like, oh, God, that's getting me. They're sacrificing themselves and going out.
And it's
not just a handshake. Does anyone else recognize what this panel's, like, based on? Does this the hands together?
I have to look at it again.
Yeah, I'm not looking at it.
Connor won't get it. Connor doesn't like the movie.
Is it Predator?
It's Predator.
Okay.
Okay.
This is Dylan, you son of a bitch. Look at it. I mean, if it's not intentional, I'll be surprised, because like having that muscle bulging in that exact shot just looks like Predator to me. But I mean, maybe people disagree.
No, it is.
Predator, well, no, it's fine.
That's fine. All right. So you got all the villains like jumping out to take on Wonder Woman. Now, And you've got, this is the moment where Gordon's like, no, that's Batman's son. That's your girl out there in the back. Because the Batmobile got flipped over when Wonder Woman landed. So they're kind of sitting ducks.
Like a missile.
And Shiva and Cass have their moment where Shiva kind of sacrifices herself to save her daughter.
Right after she just gives Slade shit for like, hey, look, it's one person. We've got to save everyone. What are you doing? And then immediately is like, all right, I guess I see his point.
Yeah.
Like, but between Hill writing Shiva and Batman and the Outsiders and her here, like, I feel like she's the next person to get the anti-hero treatment.
Oh, maybe.
Like, I would not be surprised if we get like Shiva as a supporting character somewhere.
We kind of had that in the past, though, right? Where she just does whatever's good for her. It's not necessarily villainous. Sometimes it is.
but I feel like tying her to Cass in both of these now, I feel like they're gonna play up on she's tired of being the lone wolf and she wants to be there for her daughter. And here she really is because she sacrifices herself for her.
If you want to do that, if you want to go the anti-hero route with Shiva and make her more of a solidified, like, no, she's kind of on the side of the good guys for the most part now. Tying her to Cass and Cass being the reason why she turns over a new leaf is the way to do it. It's the one that makes sense.
At the moment, she's kind of in the same place that Deathstroke is, where you can have a story where he is fighting not necessarily for the right reasons, but on the side of right, and you can buy it in the right situation quite comfortably. Yeah,
speaking of Deathstroke, he gets obliterated because Wonder Woman just flies through because he's holding off the army, and that's great last stand. Yeah. And then Wonder Woman just flies through him, so there's nothing left to like repair. It's just glorious. And then we get
the narrator though.
Well, heart out.
Yeah. Shiva ripped her own heart out. Yes, you're right. That was also one worth mentioning. But
literally,
let's get to the twist because there's a reveal here. Because there's a narrator of the whole issue who, and I never really quite even got that it was someone that we weren't supposed to know. I think I just assumed it was someone.
I thought it was Jason.
It makes you think.
I was thinking Jason. Yeah, I was thinking Jason. Yeah. But so we get this moment.
Go ahead.
We get this moment where Wonder Woman picks up the school bus. All the kids have transferred to the one bus. Wonder Woman's picked it up, and they're all kind of hanging on for dear life. And we get this close up of the one girl who's like, and we sort of realize that she's the one narrating, right? As she says this, and she goes, "Oh and it's like she's about to say, "Oh shit," right? That
works already because that's a classic moment in like a kid's sort of approachable movie.
Yeah,
right?
we can't see it. Yeah, but then you turn the page and the rest of the word is Shazam, and you see the lightning bolt go through the bus, and it's Mary Marvel.
Just have such a grin on my face. So
that's
that was fantastic.
Do you know the thing about
legit fist pumped.
Do you know the thing about this series as well is that there's so many characters that DC ignore or don't really give that much attention to, and like Mary Marvel ain't getting this moment in like a mainline DC event, at least not in the current climate, not time soon, maybe someday.
They tried in Countdown.
I generally understand why. No, not to put her down, but in the sense that in the big mainline events, there's so many big characters to choose from that they can play these moments with that they don't need to resort down.
They don't have to resort. No, that's the thinking right there. That's the problem. No. You have like giving smaller characters the main things in an event is how you elevate them. That is a creative choice which is ballsy and should be done more often.
Oh no, I get it. When I say resort, I don't mean like that's all that's left. I meant more every time a writer comes in to do an event. For the most part, they're going, this is my one chance to write a DC event of this scale. I want to use all the characters I want to use, so they use their favorites. So by their nature, you end up reinforcing all these same, popular heroes over and over because they're their favorites. So it's this kind of self-perpetuating cycle.
I feel that's why Canary becomes Green Lantern in the first one, right? I feel like Taylor really likes Canary based off of Injustice and whatnot, right? And here, this could be the next thing with Mary Marvel, because I remember them trying to do this with her in Countdown, and it didn't work because they corrupted her first and whatnot through Darkseid and this completely off story. But when she does have a moment like this, when she snaps out of it, it made me want to pay attention to Mary Marvel. Yeah. Right?
I wonder how like obviously like the bigger creators when they get an event now, they can pick any small character they want and elevate them should they choose. But I wonder, like I think when someone gets an event for the first time, I wonder like how much free reign they have to go to the smaller characters as in the main roles for the book. I feel
probably not that much because they need the bigger characters to be the selling point.
Exactly, yeah. Which is why I'm saying I would appreciate if they sometimes took some risks.
Well, I like the fact that this was a shock. Like,
it
I've
was.
read so many comic books, and when it gets to that, I was completely sideswiped by the fact that that's Mary Marvel, and she's gonna save the bus because it looks hopeless. And I'm like, oh, it's horror. This is where this is going. Like, we just watched kids get picked off by Mirror Master, you know, and they're just not gonna make it. But no, Mary Marvel shows up, and it's a really cool moment.
I think the reason it works so well is you're not sitting the issue questioning who's narrating it, and I think it is because of that red tint on the color of the narration boxes that you just assume it's Jason.
Yeah,
and because Jason's pretty quiet for most of this issue, so it makes sense. You go, okay, well, we started this series with him in general,
and nothing
so it works that we can kind of have him narrate the end here.
And nothing comes off as like something that sounds too a character or you know. Nothing, I mean, don't get me wrong. If you go back and read it, I don't think anything sounds like super Jason either. That is a character for Mary to say either. It works both ways, but nothing about it sticks out as like, oh, that can't be Jason.
Yeah, but it is because of that. It kind of takes you off guard because you weren't expecting a twist reveal.
And that's kind of the wonder of comics, that you can have a bait and switch like that. Because if this is like TV, right, you're gonna recognize the voice of the narrator.
And to go back to the elevating the characters thing I was on, like, it may not be as good as the actual reveal page itself, but one of my favorite panels this week is absolutely as she's flying up to face Wonder Woman. That first panel, just that low angle shot of her flying up to meet her in the rain. It's just it feels like it's setting her up to be no. Mary Marvel has a shot. She can take on Wonder Woman maybe.
I really like it because it's using the traditional hero shot for Wonder Woman still, with the low angle looking up and the floating in the sky. It really works.
No, I think this does elevate her. It feels like they're making her a big deal. And of course, she has the sort of the added narration afterwards when she's like, "Yeah, I probably wouldn't be able to fight her before." But in the last couple of months, I've been trained by Deathstroke and Shiva and Cassandra Cain. Like, I can fight.
So
like...
now I want Mary Marvel to be friends with Cassandra Cain.
Sure.
In mainline, because I want more of this. But no, Mary Marvel is one of those characters that does kind of get overlooked a lot, right? Because Freddy's had moments as Captain Marvel Jr. back. He was on different teams. But she's always just kind of the lost Marvel. Now with all the other kids, she's almost the Wendy in Peter Pan, right? Where she has to be the...
I think the sad truth is that the Marvel family in general have just been kind of overlooked for a long time.
Decade or so, right? You had the really slow tease introduction of the Shazam stuff in the Justice League backups in the New 52, and then that was it. That was all we got until this John's Shazam series.
Yeah. And the series has been relatively good. I think it feels disconnected so far from everything else. The Shazam family's not really showed up in anything else or connected to that yet. And I'm sure it will at some point, but at least for now, it's been kind of on its own little corner. So it's nice to see Mary Marvel sort of not only be elevated, but even just get to play with the other characters a little bit. It's just nice. So we get this big fight, and Mary Marvel flies the bus, and the vines open up to let them in. We see Harley and Poison Ivy, along with some of the magic characters. Fate's protecting the place magically.
Tanner and Constantine's there.
Yeah, like I feel like if Taylor had asked Connor, "What heroes do you want meeting them?" These are the three he would give.
It's basically for when this gets its own follow-up section. Probably in the next book, which, by the way, is called Dead Planet. I checked.
There you go. Well, so given
this is a great group of characters.
Yeah, given they're coming back to Earth, I feel like we're going to see some of these characters again in the next story. And if not, that's fine. Give me a sequel to this. Give me another 3-issue mini after Dead Planet.
I feel just like them coming back to Earth, and they've kind of hinted about what was going on in the Gotham jungle. I feel like some of these characters are going to show up.
Yeah, they probably are.
Like older Constantine and Zatanna. Maybe one of the kids is taking on the Fate helm or whatever. Like,
that said, though, isn't Dead Planet set much further ahead because John and Damian are older?
Well, that's actually interesting because I remember thinking when that was announced, because the first cover that they showed us, Constantine looked like like the same age, whereas John and Damian were older and were like Superman and Batman, and we thought it was really weird. I'm wondering if time's kind of passed differently for them.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Which is why this
Because
here,
as
Constantine looks normal here.
as we
But
learned in
Constantine
Interstellar,
wouldn't
my God,
be-
I'm trying to get my joke out. As we learned in Interstellar, time passes quicker when you're
It
a black
does.
hole. God damn it.
I was gonna say, but also Constantine wouldn't be one to not put anti-aging spells on himself,
He
right?
definitely, yeah.
Yeah. So, but no, and also Ivy and Harley, that's a pretty cool introduction as well. Like Harley sitting on the edge with like a jester hat on. Like that's a new look for her, right?
It is,
Mhm.
and purple hair is new
Mm-hmm.
because that is
Yeah.
very
So-
purple as opposed to the usual
And then,
kind
of course,
blue or red.
the final page is the reveal that they've made a statue inside the jungle of the villains who sacrificed themselves to save all the kids. And it says, "Villain, saviors, family, tree lobsters." And that's your
I
final
like the
beat.
little touch that the girl put her like ear
Mm-hmm.
That
headband on her
that
cheek.
got me
Yeah,
because that makes it seem like a legit memorial, right?
yeah.
Like she put her to there. And it took me a second to realize that Bane also was a good guy because he's the first turned.
That's because that
Right.
happened in the last issue, and it was a while ago.
Yeah.
That was like 3 months
Yeah.
ago. Yeah.
But the rest of them all go out. Well, and Deadshot too. I'll have Deadshot and Deathstroke on the same team. Oof. Trying to say those out real quick.
I mean, that's like half of the Suicide Squad books in the last year, like 10 years.
Yeah. Right. So, but yeah, this almost functions as a Suicide Squad book too, right? Like,
Yeah.
they're on a mission to get there, and they end up sacrificing themselves instead of getting blown up. But yeah, no, it was. And there's also a tree lobster on Creeper, so that was a nice touch as well.
This was like
yeah.
a pretty perfect issue.
Yeah, no, this was next level. This was we loved the first two issues, and I think this final issue took everything we loved about those first two and capped off the heartfelt story that because I don't think when we read that first one, because it wasn't really, the villains didn't really come into contact with the kids and start helping the kids properly until issue 2. The first issue they were very separate, so I don't think we expected in that first issue, even though Taylor's very good at pulling at the heartstrings, I don't think we saw exactly what it was going to be doing yet. It didn't quite get there because in the first issue it was Jason and Cass like round up, they find these kids, get Gordon, that stuff. The villains were separate, and then last issue is where they kind of came clashing together. Then this issue is like, oh, here's what the story's really been about. It's about these villains stepping up because the story started with them just trying to save themselves by hiding out in this tree, like with Savage and that, and then by the end it's like, no, they went out saving innocent people. That's how the story ended. So you can't have a different beginning and end for a group of characters quite like you did with these.
Yeah. And I think it works as well because most of these characters have at some point, shown their capacity for humanity and not just being out and out evil at all times, right?
Yeah.
So it doesn't feel like it's a betrayal of character, or even that it's that much growth for them. It's like, no, this was always within reach for these people.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't recall anything with Creeper, but I've not encountered Creeper as much.
Well, that's the thing with the thing with Creeper though is that he's almost like chaotic neutral Joker. Like he's you never know what you're gonna get with him, but he's generally a good guy.
He's a lot more tragic as well.
Yeah, and like with Bane, the most I've ever liked Bane was in Secret Six, where he was basically a hero trying to whip that team into shape. So that they all work in that way. Even Slade, where like Connor was talking earlier, sometimes he's used as that mercenary that's got to take out Superman, and other times he's like, no, he's running a protection scheme for somebody.
Slade does what Slade wants and what Slade's getting paid to do ultimately.
Right.
But I mean, Deadshot, with time and time again, you've seen stories, about his daughter usually. But the idea of kids with him specifically,
right,
is very baked in.
And then with Grundy, it's a little bit more different just because he's this monster. He leans himself to it, like.
Yeah, but even with Grundy, the whole time, it's never like he's evil. He's just Grundy.
A force of nature.
Yeah.
Pointed in direction.
It's not like Grundy usually has a plan to destroy the city and take over. It's just, no, Grundy does what Grundy does.
Man, being how he is, and he can be reborn, I'd love to see a new Grundy pop up. And then when they show back up, there's like a different form of him. I always like when they play with the different forms of him. Like Zombie Grundy and Justice League Dark, or in the Brad Meltzer Justice League, where he came back with an intellect and takes out the Justice League. That was pretty fun.
No, the issue is phenomenal, and I mean, we've had some books obviously the last few weeks, but not a lot, and this week was also quite quiet, but this is the book that made it feel like comic books are back.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this is the book that that made me go to my comic shop to pick up my stuff. So, which was a nice surprise that, they're actually back to functioning. You can't sit and hang out like you used to, but you can go in, grab your stuff as long as you have your mask on and, hand sanitizer and whatnot. So yeah, and this is a nice one to go back to,
wonderful stuff. I mean, the art, we don't really mention this issue beyond a couple of maybe key pages, but it's because it's the same as the previous 2 issues.
Yeah, and I'm not a fan of the faces. It's very Quitely, and I know I'll have people that tell me I'm insane. I'm not a big fan of Frank Quitely, and this reminds me a lot of his faces. So, but it's fine. It never once detracted me, except for maybe the way that Mary's drawn when she's about to say Shazam, and I get what they were going for. It just kind of face looks a bit squishy, but other than that, everything's fine.
Yeah. But they didn't really talk about the fact that the reason why she hadn't Shazammed up is because she was so terrified of becoming zombified as,
Yeah, she kind of hints that something happened to Billy.
Yeah.
Right? And she didn't want to also risk the power because what if it was corrupted? Because she didn't know the extent of...
Yeah, I think it was more, if she was turned into a zombie as she is now, no big deal. Right? But if she's turned into a zombie as Mary Marvel, well, that's a problem for everyone else.
Exactly. So, yeah. All right, we'll be rating this then. Matt, we giving it?
This is a 9.5.
Connor?
I'm just slapping the 10 on it.
There you go.
Yeah, I'm giving it a 10. I mean, even though the art, because I like the art, the aesthetic of the art, the faces are a little bit here or there, but even with that issue, 10. The feelings don't lie.